everyone. My name is Kat Savage, and I'm a professional artist, clinical hypnotherapist, and well-being expert working with those in the creative arts sector. In my line of work, I get to meet some amazing, colourful people, from actors to artists, people who live their lives by their own rules, fueled by passion and determination to bring their unique talents into the world. I wanted to discover what it took for people to leave the usual 9 to 5 and hop on a dream, to capture their bravest moments and share these meaningful conversations with you, so that together we can explore the ideas, emotions, and moments that could potentially change our lives too. So let's keep talking, have some fun, and enjoy the show. This week on The Brave Moment, we have a very special show. Not only are we celebrating our 50th episode, but we're also celebrating Britney Spears' 40th birthday as we welcome back to the show best-selling author and rock and roll historian Jennifer Otter Bickerdike to talk about her new biography, Being Britney, Pieces of a Modern Icon. Coinciding with the release of Britney Spears from a nearly 14-year-long conservatorship, not only do we celebrate her freedom, but also why we should all be taking notice of this historical event in pop history and how it came to mute one of the most powerful women on the planet. It is with great pleasure that I reintroduce you to the woman, the myth, the legend that is Jennifer Otter Bickerdike. Jennifer Otter Bickerdike, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have you back.
Lady, thank you so much for putting up with me. Round 2 in less than a year.
Ding, ding. Well, that's all down to you and your incredibly speedy writing, my friend. So,
Lord.
Talking of which, we are here to talk about your brand new book, Being Britney, Pieces of a Modern Icon. And I have to say, the timing could not be more perfect. Were you aware of what was going on as you were writing it, thinking, oh my God, it's going to be released at the same time?
Absolutely not. It's funny because originally, I actually signed up to do this book in November of 2020. And we're like, oh yeah, I'll turn in the finished manuscript February 2022. La, la, la. You know what I mean? Just a little skip along in the garden. And then probably in May of this year, my publisher called me. I was actually down in Devon going for a week of vacation. This is how the vacation kicked off, Kat. My publisher calls me first day I'm down there. Hey, could you write your entire Britney book in a month? What? We want to have it out for Christmas. What? And I was just like, child, no, because I still was, as you know, I was still working on the last finishing flourishes of my last book, You Are Beautiful and You Are Alone, the biography of Nico. And I just couldn't deal. So I started writing Britney. I'd already done bits and pieces, but I really sat down, literally, sis, July and half of August. By mid-August, I had the first copy of the manuscript done.
Wow.
And my ass had to be surgically removed from the desk that I sit at. I got to tell you this. There's one point where I've become friendly with Susanna Haas from the Bangles, and she's the most free-spirited, wee. And she's like, "Aren't you loving the writing process?" And I took a picture of the desk, and it's when we were having a heat wave. I'm like, okay, girl. I'm like, there's 20 empty Diet Coke cans, crumbs everywhere. My computer looks like I've wiped the screen with a salami sandwich, and I'm wearing cutoffs and a stained wife beater. I look like I look like Homer Simpson's bastard sibling. You know what I mean? I was loving the process. Yeah.
What I love about this already is in our last interview together, you were talking about the Bangles and you were talking about oh, it'd be so nice if, I ended up doing their biography and all the rest of it. And now you're I'm talking about being at my desk and wearing Homer Simpson clothes with, members of the Bangles. I think that's pretty cool.
That's been a little bit of a bummer because, well, it's actually really fabulous. Susanna has her own fiction book, which she signed to do, and she just put out some new music. So she's very focused on that. So there's not going to be a Bangles with all 3 of the Bangles biography coming out in the near future, which bums me out as a fan and a writer. But one of the things I got out of it is I'm really lucky because I would consider the two sisters, Vicky and Debbie Peterson, and Sue, I consider all of them friends now. And it's very weird. I know that you have quite a few celeb friends. It's but it's funny because like the other night I called Vicky, it was Tuesday. So like, obviously it's Thanksgiving today today's Thursday, November 25th. I called Vic up on Tuesday because I was thinking about her and I was just like chopping it up with her. And then I don't know if you do this, you flash and go, oh, I'm talking to one of the Bengals. You know, like you're like, I'm just like, yeah, it's my good homie. I'm like talking shit with her, da-di-da. And then I'll be like, oh, fuck.
There's that censorship, isn't there? There's something that happens halfway through the conversation. You're like, oh, hang on a minute. What are my boundaries here? Oh, no, screw it. Let's still get drunk and have a good time.
Dude, yeah. Like she's like, yeah. And like, I have to say Vicky and Sue, like in different ways, like Sue had to listen to me moan and complain about being surgically attached to the chair. And Vicky had to deal, like, I would just leave Vicky random rants, like on WhatsApp voice messages. Like, I'd be like, I've had 17 Diet Cokes. Woohoo! And I don't know why I chose these two poor souls. No wonder they're not doing a book with me right now. I don't know why I chose these two souls, but bless them. They were so supportive and I love them. So yeah, that's my Bengals story for today.
Oh, I love that though. Anyway, coming back to Miss Spears. Miss Britney.
Yes, Miss Britney. So we didn't know, Kat, we did not know the timing at all of like the conservatorship, what was going to happen. We initially thought, okay, let's try to have this out for Britney's birthday, which is December 2nd, which I believe is when the podcast, we were dropping this on December 2nd, correct, Amundo? Yeah. Which is Madam's 40th birthday.
Happy birthday, Britters.
Yeah. Happy birthday, sis. And it's fascinating because I feel like my life really, like the person I'm supposed to be really started at 40. And it was important to me. I'm like, I really want to have this book out for Britney for her birthday. Not that I thought she was going to pick it up and be like, "Oh, thanks, Jen." But it's a very celebratory book written from a scholarly, thoughtful perspective. And it was important to me that be available for like as kind of like a flag being like, boom, this is Britney's important. That's it. And then we just, then like when I wrote it so fast that the publisher was like, okay, let's just see how quickly we can get it out there. So that's how that worked out, the timing.
Yeah. I mean, for people that aren't fans of Britney and her music, like why should her story matter to those people that aren't a fan?
This probably is going to be shocking to you. Like I've always been a passive Britney fan.
I am shocked.
In terms of, I mean, yeah, I know. Wah, wah. I mean, I've said this before, you are dead inside if you put Work Bitch on and you don't start strutting. The reason I wanted to write about Britney originally was because I was finishing up Nico and I thought, one of the things that was really rewarding about Nico is unpicking and unraveling the story of this woman. If people know who Nico is / was, there's definitely a mythology that's incorrect about her that still lingers around her. And the deeper I got into that story, the more I'm like, this is a complicated situation. And I just became like a complete and utter forensic archaeologist searching for as close to the actual truth and facts as I could. And I'm like, who else could I do that with? And I know Britney Spears does not seem like an obvious candidate for that, but in some ways it's so obvious because her entire career and life has been played out in the tabloid media. So there's not, and I started looking like, Kat, I looked around, I looked in the US, I looked here. There's not been a thoughtful, research, constructive book written about Britney, though she's been in the public eye for over 2 decades.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, I really want to be the person that takes a deep dive into some of these stories and ideas about who Britney is, and more importantly, her importance in popular culture. So to answer your question, she permeates every area of popular culture in the West, whether it's style, sexuality, perfume, business. And the thing that I found most alarming about the process is Britney is such a massive success. I mean, we should all hope and pray to be as powerful as Britney in some ways, and yet people still do not take her seriously.
It is like, that's weird to me because when I was growing up, I mean, you just mentioned, her influence on style, on culture and all the rest of it. I was that girl that was totally influenced by her. She was someone that I could look up to. She, I dyed my hair blonde to be like her at one point, I think. She taught me how to dance. She was iconic, but she seemed accessible to me. And I sometimes wonder whether or not that accessibility was taken for granted.
You know what? Absolutely. And I think the accessibility is why you're enough younger than me. That's why she connected with girls like you. You saw that as powerful. You saw that, like, I think about and it's funny because we were talking about the Bengals. I've said this to those girls. I'm like, you seemed inaccessible. You seemed just on a different planet from where I was. I was lower middle class, family on food stamps, living in Santa Cruz. They were glamorous, fabulous up on a stage. Britney may have been up on a stage, but you take a video, like the first video, Hit Me. Those clothes were bought at Kmart, which would be Primark here. You know what I mean? Or buying something at Sainsbury's. So here you have you as a kid could literally go buy the same clothes that Britney is wearing there. You looking around in that video, those people look like the kids that you know. When Britney slams the locker shut in that video, you don't see that as her being like, oh, I'm some sassy Lolita. All that Lolita stuff, that's the adult eye looking at it. You as a girl are seeing that as powerful. Like you tying your shirt up as a 14, 13, 15-year-old girl, that's you trying to figure out your own sexuality. It's the adults that's putting all this stuff on it. And if you start, it's just article after article, Kat. It didn't matter if we were talking about Britney doing a perfume launch where she's being the press to say, oh, she was snapping her gum, and the speech she made about why the perfume is new and exciting. It wasn't completely glib and smooth, and it used common words. They were like critiquing her for that. But that's, again, if you are her consumer, that's going to connect with you more. If you understand what she's saying, she's speaking to you in your language. One of the things that pissed me off the most. In fact, I read the audiobook, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had to go back and do this part again. There's the part where we're talking about Britney's perfume empire. And there was an article in a stylist magazine where the writer interviews some high class women in New York. And the women are like, well, I wear Britney perfume, but I don't tell anyone I wear it. I layer over my own expensive essential essences over it so nobody can know it's Britney. And I'm just sitting there going, ho, you wish you were as successful as Britney. Like you should be like marinating in a cauldron of Britney perfume overnight, praying that you're as successful as Britney. And it's that kind of snobbery that I've seen in the reviews the book has gotten, the way people have reacted to the fact that I've written about Britney. It's been very strange to me because I think we should be. So, and if you're not, going back to your question, why should we be interested in this? Because the phenomena that is Britney Spears, and yet the prejudice against Britney Spears.
Yeah.
And Henry Rollins actually said, I sent him an early manuscript. He said, this book speaks to how much the U.S. and the media hates women. And that's what I think it really boils down to be fair.
I mean, after writing Nico as well, the sort of historical reoccurrences that you must have come across and the trends and misogyny towards women in the industry, it must have been frightening for you to then be part of that conversation yourself as the writer. I mean, how did you handle all of that?
I mean, Kat, like, you know me well enough to know I'm not the one that's like, ooh, you didn't cook my steak the way I like. Misogyny, I'm someone that just gets on with it. I'm like, it is what it is, and I get asked to do a lot of these women in the music business, women authors. I'm like, can we just not focus on the vagina? Can we just focus on the work that I'm doing,
Yeah.
And so that has been a massive wake-up call. And the way I describe it is it's almost like the upper crust, that part has changed, I would say, in that we talk more openly about it. We can voice things like Me Too, this, that, and the other. But you do a deep dive beyond that when I say crust, I mean, it is like if you put your finger if it was ice, if you put your finger on that ice, whoop, you would fall through, you know what I mean? Like there's still such a deep hatred and disgust towards women, and it's just so part of our society. And that's been it was very difficult while writing Nico to see the way people had written about her before, to see how some of the interviewees still spoke with her, to see how some of the reviewers spoke about her or wrote about her when they were talking about the book, and also just specific words they would maybe say to talk about me as an author. That was crazy. And then to go straight into Britney, which is just, I mean, so over the top, a case study in how a woman's been mistreated in every single way. It's been pretty harrowing, to be honest.
For the listeners that don't really know about the conservatorship situation, can you give us a brief description of what Britney's been going through for the last 13 years?
Of course. So if people had not followed Britney, she was put into the conservatorship just under 14 years ago. And she'd had a bunch of different what are called in the popular press, mental breakdown incidents. Whether it was she went into a hairstyling place in Los Angeles and shaved her head in public. She attacked a paparazzi's car with an umbrella. She had various bits and bobs that she did that were acting out. She also dared to go out with her friends and get drunk and be obnoxious. What a horrible person. And because she did this, she was put into a 5150, which is a psychiatric hold twice in the state of California, which means you can't get out of that psychiatric hold. You're thrown basically into a hospital for 72 hours. She's put in that twice. Think about, all you need to do is read Motley Crue, The Dirt, which is a brilliant book. It's like, those guys should have been in 5150s 24/7, not to throw out a bunch of numbers. Britney never hurt anybody. She never really hurt herself, unless you want to consider giving yourself a bald head hairdo. I don't.
But she was pushed to that extreme. And this is the thing, like if a guy went into a hairdresser and shaved his head, that would be considered a cool move. As soon as a woman does it, it's crazy, or she must be having a breakdown. This, I can remember that happening in the news and feeling shocked as a fan, but also feeling as a woman, she's been pushed to that space.
Oh, so true. And you just think about it too. She has the world media following her around, trying to get a scoop. At one point, one of the different tabloids down in Los Angeles, 20% of their entire business was Britney Spears.
Wow.
That's like absolutely insane in the membrane. And I can't even imagine what it must be like. You and I are both creatives. There's so many times when I have my what I call my Ian Curtis / Sylvia Plath moments. I'm just like, nobody understands me. You know what I mean? I'm so isolated. And can you imagine like the way her family was treating her, everyone around her wanting stuff? I can't even contemplate how this poor girl must have just felt so alone. And on top of that, she had, one of the things I talk about in the book, she had 2 babies back to back. And what nobody said at the time, if you look at some of the symptoms we know was going on with Britney, it is postpartum depression 101.
Absolutely.
And nobody even said, oh, maybe this is what's happening with this girl. Do you know what's even more alarming is now that she's out of the so that's why she got put into the conservatorship, just to go back. That's why she got put into the conservatorship. And the conservatorship was 2 parts. One is a personal part of the conservatorship, which means that the conservator, which was her father, Jamie Spears, and her management company, TriStar, they controlled who she saw, when she saw anybody, ingoing, outgoing, phone calls, basically all connection to the world. So she was completely cut off from email, phone, friends, everything. They had complete control over her, much like a child.
Do you know what I saw on her Instagram, actually? And if you don't follow her Instagram, listeners, please follow it, just so that you can be enlightened on the situation. There was one of her posts was her driving in her car and her saying, just having the keys to my car and being able to drive is one of the best things. We take these things for granted, and literally everything, to the keys of her freaking car, was taken from this woman, and she was perfectly rational at the time. It makes me mad.
Do you know what I said? I actually said it on Women's Hour. I don't know if the host thought it was very funny, but I said, one of the things she says, I think it's in that same post that you're referring to, Kat, Brittany's like, I can buy candles.
Oh, yes.
I can buy candles. And what I said on Women's Hour, like, I remember when I first went away, we're talking, I was 17, 18 years old. When I first went away to university and like lived in the dormitories, I remember having the feeling of, I can go buy Pringles. I'd never eaten Pringles. I don't know how I got to be 18. I'd never eaten a Pringle. But I just remember sitting there in my dorm room going, this light bulb going on, going, da, 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 da. God, I wish I'd never discovered them if you look at the way I look now. But it's like, da, 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 I can eat Pringles. And that's what it reminded me of. It's like, I can do stuff.
Yeah.
And here's this almost 40-year-old woman excited to eat Pringles or buy a candle. You know what I mean? It's like she's just been the arrested development she's been forced to have. So that was the personal part. And then the other part of the conservatorship is the conservatorship of her estate, which is all the business of Britney, touring, publishing, recording, all the perfume, all the other things are branded Britney. So all that stuff for 13 years. And one of the questions I've been asked a lot is, why did she not do anything before? Before June 23rd, of this year, when she made the big statement about what had been going on, I don't think she actually knew that she could do anything because she didn't have access. It's hard for us to think about that. Imagine if you had no one you trusted to talk to, no internet, no way to get online, no phone. Like, you wouldn't know. Like, you have no resources, no Pinterest, like it's crazy. And that's what this woman was living with.
I mean, I didn't really understand what she was going through until I watched Britney versus Spears on a popular streaming site. Google it, my friends. And I didn't really understand to what extent she was being inhibited. And once I watched that documentary, I left the room feeling like it had happened to me. And I think that's the thing. Like, when you realize how little power she had for the last decade of her life, like the prime years of her life, oh my goodness, it affects you as a woman very, very intimately, I think.
And the thing that's most terrifying is how she was erased, basically.
Yeah.
She's one of the most known women in the world. You'd think financially and just culturally one of the most powerful women in the world. And she was completely muted. She was neutered of her power. I mean, you look at someone like Adele, who recently was able to tell Spotify what to do.
Yeah.
I would say Britney was even more powerful at the height of her reign. And she was silenced. That could happen to any of us. And to me, that's probably the most scary part of the whole situation, to be fair.
I mean, when you were writing this book, how did it affect you emotionally as you were digging up all of this stuff on Britney's life? Being that beforehand, like you said, you weren't really, you were a passive Britney fan. Like, how did it affect you emotionally finding out about her life?
It was twofold. First of all, it made me feel horribly sad for her, And it also, the big thing it did for me, I think, because I was having to write it so quickly, but it made me feel guilty because I had been working, I was a marketing director for Interscope, Geffen A&M Records when Britney was coming up. And I was, I'm from Santa Cruz, like I said. I'm someone, my mom made her own yogurt when I was growing up. I only say that because it's like, I used to wear this is what a feminist looks like. Like, that's been my whole fucking, jam. And yet when Britney was going through all this, I was just there with everyone else pointing and laughing, being like, what's the next thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
I was just as bad. And so my editor actually was I had this brilliant editor named Melissa, this 28-year-old kid. It's a kid, woman. Sorry, Mel, if you're listening to this. Shout out, Melissa. She loved Britney, huge, like much like yourself, huge Britney fan. And I wanted to apologize to her because I think it was really hard for her and probably not that different from you, Kat, seeing her heroine go through all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, I was working in the music industry and I didn't do anything but laugh along with everyone else. And it made me reevaluate myself. And during this time period, Kat, I started getting trolled on the internet just because my Nico book was getting some traction. And I'm just kind of like, why did trolls exist? Why are people so mean to each other? I don't get it. So it made me want to be nicer to people, period, in general. And it made me really have a lot of empathy for Britney in particular.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned before we started this interview, we started talking about Crossroads, and I know that you wanted to talk about that in particular. What is it about that film that you want to say?
I was just going to say it was funny because I had watched it obviously I wanted to talk about it in the book, and it's a crucial film for Britney fans. And I was just like, I have so little free time. And when I sit down and watch TV, it has to be something quality, like America's Next Top Model reruns from 2009. Anywho.
We sidetrack. I'm like that with RuPaul's Drag Race now. I'm like, oh, wow.
You can't see my face, but you can imagine it. So Crossroads, Kat, was really important for me to include in the book. And I therefore had to watch Crossroads. And I was just dreading it. I'm like, oh, because sometimes when you go back, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I loved it when it was on. Go back and watch it.
Does
I'm
not
like,
age
man,
well.
no, it's like, do not go back in. It's like a bad relationship. Like, do not go back in there. And I was worried that Crossroads was going to be a similar situation. I was blown away by Crossroads.
Oh, that's cool because I'll go back and watch it now.
You probably watched it as a kid, like when you were a fan. Yeah. So watching it as an adult, you're sitting there thinking, okay, Britney Spears makes this movie at the height of her popularity. The movie is crazy. It has rape. It has eating disorders. The themes in it are just absolutely next level, things we were absolutely not talking about in the period when the movie was made. And I was watching it and I just had so much respect for Britney because I just was thinking of all the movies this girl could have made, she chooses this one. And it was funny because when I wrote up the piece for the book, my editor was like, you have to tone it down, because I was basically like, this is the best movie ever, Academy Award. But just like the other things we were talking about with Britney, the movie got absolutely canned and completely, people just thought it was a complete shit show because it was Britney Spears. They didn't look at it as anything else but a crappy Britney Spears vehicle, and it's absolutely criminal. So I really think people, even if you don't like Britney Spears, just even from if you want like a Gorillas in the Mist, Jane Goodall kind of vibes, watch the movie, because from a sociological perspective, it's fascinating if you take it as a snapshot of that moment and how it clashes with that time period when you have things like Jackass, you have women being really overly sexualized, and then you have Britney Spears talking about date rape. It's like absolutely crazy in a good way, in a powerful way.
Now that you're saying it now, I'm reminiscing and I'm flashing back to that film. Yeah, there was a lot going on. And actually, for a girl at that time, very informative. When you're representing Britney in your book, how did you want to represent her differently?
I wanted to show Britney as a human. I think that was really important to me because she's been idealized by so many people, but then she's also been torn down. Like there's a part where I talk about Chaotic, which was the reality TV show she did. And she gets completely shredded. Like, oh, she has zits. She looks bloated. She's wearing Ugg boots and cut off jean shorts. Well, hello, in like the mid 2000s, everybody wore that in California. That was the look.
Yeah.
So basically she looks and acts like a girl in her mid 20s. Oh, how dare she? And if you think about, and she gets also again shredded because they're like, she's turning the camera on herself and talking about her life. Has anyone seen Instagram stories? Has anyone seen like unboxing, or dare I say, has anyone seen Love Island or Jersey Shore? Britney, whether you like those shows or not, I'm not really, my husband loves them. That Chaotic with Britney Spears was the forefather of those sorts of, that format of TV. And yet she does not, all she does is get criticized. And I thought it was important to really play up, this person is not perfect. This person is multi-layered, and this person needs to be looked at, celebrated, and treated as a complicated woman. And that was what was important to me in this book. Not as a victim, maybe a survivor, definitely powerful, but someone that we can all relate to in some way, and someone that is complicated.
I really, really love that. And, as a Britney fan, I'm so excited to read it. Talking of Britney fans, they know Britney inside and out. What can they expect to find in the book that maybe they might be surprised about?
I was really nervous because some of my early readers were some of the Free Britney LA crew.
Yeah.
And like you said, they know way more about Britney than I do. And what they said to me is, one, it was nice to have everything in one place, because there is no other book or really archive that has all the different Britney episodes in one place.
Yeah.
But I think it's all things that maybe Britney fans have thought about or even talked amongst themselves about, but it's laid out together in this book for you to contemplate and for you to go, okay, it's like different beats. Like, okay, this is how Britney changed this. this is why Britney was important in this moment. And it's both a biography of Britney, but also a biography of the culture that we're living in right now and how Britney both has influenced it and fed into it. And I think even if you know everything about Britney, it will show you a different lens to look at Britney, but also look at the world around you using this book. Like, one of the things that I found most alarming is in Britney's testimony on June 23rd of this year, she talked about how her sexual reproductive choices are being, the conservatorship was influencing that and controlling that. And so I got quite a few calls from like the BBC, people wanting to ask what I thought of that. And obviously, I think a woman should have the right to choose what she wants to do with her own body.
Absolutely.
You know, but it made me dig in a little bit more, Kat. Like in the state of Texas in America, they've outlawed abortion. And then I found out, and I started digging in more. And this is in America. So just make all the British listeners be like, sweet Georgia Brown, thank God for the UK. There's actually a law still existing in America, a law that said that if a woman is thought to be too stupid to have children, she can be legally sterilized.
Oh my God.
Yeah, still standing, this law. So stuff like that I was just like, oh my God. But the thing is, Britney Spears gets us talking about this. What is important is that the conversation continue and we keep fighting for these things and being aware, not just talking, having action long after Britney is not in the news about these specific things.
I mean, my next question to you is going to be, was there anything that you found surprising when doing your research? But I think you might have just answered that. But was there anything else that really stood out or that you were totally in shock about when you were researching her?
I would say two things. One, not shock, but disgust and like, I hate being right about certain things and the way that, you're just reading through these different stories, people having interactions with her. And this woman is clearly not being treated well. It's kind of like a caged animal at the zoo. And you see that they're just not happy. They're not as they should be. And because they're making money, nobody gives a hoot.
Yeah.
It's all about the money. The money was the most important. It was like story after story of this person is suffering and nobody stepping in because it's all about the Benjamins, So that was one. But I wasn't surprised. I was more disgusted.
Yeah.
The thing that surprised me is that literally I read over 1,000 different interviews and people, stories, tabloid, things about Britney. And there's only probably one or two times in all the years where she is busted out. And when I mean busted out, been rude to a fan, been rude to a reporter.
Yeah.
She's just the nicest, most congenial person. But she, even at the lowest point, she was not like that. There was, aside from this very, very small handful of incidents, that I found shocking in like, wow, this is like a very humble, kind person. Or someone that's just been socialized to be like that, if that makes sense, not to stand up for herself. So it's a complicated one that I found sad, surprising, and weird, but not weird, just interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank God for her fans at this point, when she was completely cut off from the world as well, just being able to fight for her. And I mean, that's something really that I found very poignant myself, being that I am a fangirl for certain celebrities. And knowing that there is a way for fans to give back to the celebrity that they admire. And you're a fangirl as well, aren't you? You're self-confessed.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you think people become such fans of their chosen celebrities? What do you think the celebrity gives us to help us through our lives? And how can we give back?
Well, I think one of the things that's so important right now, celebrity has existed since Roman times. You think about Romans having their faces on coins that we find in archaeological digs. Those were the celebrities of those times. So there is something to that human need to like worship and look up to an entity outside of ourselves. But if we look at the time specifically we're living in now, in the Western world, Christianity, Judaism, those religions are dropping rapidly. In fact, in the United States, there was a statistic that specific branches of Christianity won't even exist anymore, Kat, by the year 2030, because the practitioners are dying off, and there's nobody new coming. Like there's not young people flooding into the churches.
Yeah.
So, what is our church? What do we have with us 24/7, girl? Our phone. The internet. So, it's completely become normative to be obsessed or looking for a celebrity to help us on stuff. And that celebrity is always accessible to you, whether it's on Instagram, music, lyrics, all those kinds of things. So that celebrity fills in the gaps where contemporary religion may not have or may not be a part of your life. And it's normalized to worship a celebrity. Now, for myself, I had one of my, as I've talked about before, one of my good friends I grew up with was murdered. And it was listening to the Smiths and Joy Division. Obviously, it's such a profound effect that I moved to the country they were from.
Yes!
So, that just touched me in a way that traditional prayer and participation in, more recognized religions hadn't. So I think there is something that is innate in us that wants to look up to other people. But right now, just the world we're living in, it just is more convenient to have celebrity worship, I think, really.
Yeah. We talked about Britney having her birthday this week. Happy birthday, Britney. What do you hope she's wishing for as she blows out those candles? And what do you hope she'll do next?
I personally, if I was sitting down with Britney and she's like, what should I do, Jen? I'd say, girl, here's what you need to do. You need to just step away from everything for like a year and just find out who you are. Who is Britney Spears away from Britney Spears? She probably has never been able to find that out or get to know who that is.
Yeah.
And just spend some time away from the media, away from people, even away from the fans who I know they love her and I know she loves them. But just have some Britney time just to recalibrate everything. And that's what I would do. I think much more likely is she'll probably start doing bits and pieces of work here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But that estate part that we were talking about, the conservatorship, that's going to take, I think, a lot longer to unpick. So it might be difficult financial wise for her to immediately have complete control over her money, just because there were so many deals done by Jamie Spears and TriStar while she was in the conservatorship, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
But yeah, I would hope that she would spend some downtime. That's my hope for Britney.
I hope for that too. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the interview, and I really want to talk a little bit about your writing process, just for our budding writers listening to the show. What challenges did you face when writing this book?
This book was 100% different than my last book. My last book was all about going to archives, following breadcrumb trails that led to nowhere in terms of details of Nico's life, trying to find, people, see if people were dead or not that I could interview, that sort of thing. And it was a 4-year process. Britney was all about finding things on the internet. It was funny because when I first started, Kat, because I'm such a nerd, I'm like, I'm going to go to the British Library. And there was, nothing sexier than an archive. And there is literally nothing, there's no archive anything on Britney because everything's been so played out in the tabloids. I guess nobody thought it was worth, putting anything into the deep freeze of an archive. So my process for this was literally, I made it as 40 chapters, one for each year of Britney's life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And then just kind of thought of a theme, like what are kind of some of the key moments of Britney's career and existence. And I built each of the 40 chapters around, identified those, and then wrote basically to that theme for each chapter.
I mean, was that an easy feat because you had kind of like a process that you were going through, or did you find that ridiculously hard and procrastinating because you knew that you had like a map?
It was easy because I had the map. That part was easy. Having the map was easy. What was hard is I was under so much pressure, time pressure to do it. Like it wasn't like, and because obviously you want the end product to be good.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be crap. So there's the pressure of this has to be done. And like my old roommate used to say, sometimes done is better than good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't want that. I wanted it to be badass.
Yeah,
I just had put out this book that had taken 4 years and I was very proud of. And I'm like, I can't just come out with like this other than mediocre book right after it.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a good look. And I didn't want to do that for Britney or the fans or anything. So trying to have that high, I was working like 17 hours a day.
Wow.
7 days a week. It was not cute, girl. It was not cute.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine. Like, what motivated you through that? Because you must have got to a point where you were crying into your sleeve.
It was not cute. It was, see Diet Coke, crumbs, and salami sandwich from the beginning of the interview.
Next time, ask for a sponsorship from them.
Yeah, that's right. I would say it was just, I had no choice but to do it. I just had to it's kind of like if you're like, I've done one triathlon in my life, never again. It was the worst experience. But as much as you want to quit, you just have to you don't have a choice. You just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Even if it's incredibly painful, you just keep moving forward. And every word you write, you're chipping away at the larger picture.
Yeah.
Like even this morning, dude, I woke up and I know you and I are going to be talking, and I was just like, oh my God, I've written 2 books and Ghost wrote a book in a year. Like that's like insane in the member, and I'm a professor. So I had my professor job on top of it. It's like,
and all the interviews. I mean, I've been watching your Insta just blow up over the last couple of weeks. It has been insane. Like how you've smashed this year. I mean, you've ridden lockdown hard.
Oh, bless you. But you know what? I do have to say, there's been a massive price to pay. Like physical price. I've never been this out of shape. Mentally, I'm just completely like if like balance was something you could see, I'm like completely like one way. So that is something I have got to figure out. I got an email from, sorry, I think I'm name dropping, but Cozy Fanny Tootie from Throbbing Gristle, who I love to pieces. And she's like, so are you thinking about your next book? I'm like, I have to be, because that's my bread and butter.
Yep.
Yeah. But at the same time, I said, I just want to take 6 months off to just like do restorative yoga every day and like, do Reiki or whatever it is to like get my chakras back in balance. But I think I just need to learn how to balance my life with my work. I just get so obsessed. So salami sandwich, Diet Coke, so.
If you could have some healthy writing rituals, what do you think they might be?
Oh, Lord. Do you know what? If for the budding writers out there, I would say just I keep it on notes, keep ideas of all the different things you would like to write about. Because it might just spring into your mind. Because one of the things, like, it's different being a commercial writer, which is primarily what I do. And then there's always like my little passion things. I'm like, okay, well, maybe right now I won't do that because I need the writing for my living. But, maybe I'll have an opportunity to like write a column, or maybe there'll be a piece I can write here or there. And that's kind of what, and try to find, even if, like I said, like the Britney, it wasn't like I was an obsessive Britney fan, but find the things in it that's important to you. And that will keep you so motivated. Like with the Britney story, the more I got into it, the more motivated I was to do it. So I saw like how it was, I knew the basics of the Britney story, but the deeper I got into the narrative, the more I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is just, I want to write this for her, but also for non-Britney fans. They can kind of get a better feel of what's happened to this woman and how we treat women. And so I would say just figure out like, what are those stories that you want to tell, and keep a journal of them somehow. And even if it's just like throughout the day or weeks or months or whatever, just go back to those, because like, you never know when something will pop up that you might have an opportunity to write about. Like the Bangles thing. Like I reached out to them like almost 2 years ago now, and I don't really know where that's going to go, except I have some great friends from that. So just keep kind of like, I would say like, just keep a log of the things that interest you, and just not chase them, but try to connect with the people that they're related to, or just work on them on the side of your main job. Even if it's just writing down if you come across something when you're reading another book, like, ooh, that's an interesting figure, jot that down. But just doing the writing, that's the best thing you can do. And trying to write as much as you possibly can. Even if nobody else sees it, that makes you a writer. You are a writer if you are writing. Not even if it's not published, even if you're just like writing in your journal, you're a writer. And that's the most important thing.
I've got one final question for you.
Yes, tell me.
It's quite of a big one. So, how has writing changed your life?
I would say I've not had time to really think and reflect on it, if that makes any sense. I've been so busy doing that I've not reflected on how it's changed my life. But the one thing that's really cool is, I would say, knock on wood, almost every day someone sends me an email and is like, I just read your book and it really meant so much to me, or it really touched me, or it totally changed the way I thought about something. And it's funny because you're an artist, Kat. And the weirdest thing is, and I know this is so obvious, when I write something, I write it and then I kind of, even if it's a book, I kind of forget about it in terms of, I'm not like, I know other people can read it. Obviously, I give friends my books or I ask them to buy them, but I forget that I want strangers to buy them, obviously. But you have these people from all over the world emailing you being like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, my work's out there. And it's very strange, but it's really cool. And like the friends, I would say friends I've made doing this, that's been really, really cool. And that's something I never would have thought in a million years. A year ago, if you would have called, if you and I would have done this interview and you'd be like, are you talking to the Bangles or are you talking to Edwina in Australia? That's a friend I've made through Britney Spears. I'd be like, get off the crack pipe. But the people I've met, that's how it's changed my life the most, I would say.
That's amazing. And really, really good motivation for those people that are just starting out and thinking, that they're going to amount to nothing, because all artists think that. And then something happens, doesn't it, that changes their life and it becomes part of the fabric of who you are. And I'm really pleased. I'm so pleased that it's happened for you this year. Talking of strangers reading your book, where can people find it? And yeah, tell me about the publishing house as well. So we'll give them a shout out.
Being Britney can be found at all good bookstores, Rough Trade, and this is the most crazy part: Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda.
Yes!
So yeah, the publisher is 9/8, and my Instagram is Jennifer Otter Bickerdike. So yeah, holla at your girl on the Insta.
Mm-hmm. And Audible fans and Kindle fans, it is also digital, so that's good. Jennifer Otter Bickerdike, it has been such a pleasure to speak to you again. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas and you do get to do some restorative yoga.
Oh, thank you so much. The yoga will probably be lifting the mulled wine to my lips, but
Oh, that's my
style. I'm sure there's some stretching in that as well.
Well, you take care of yourself, my lovely lady.
You too, babe. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. Bye. Through Jennifer's eyes, we get to see what bravery looks like for a powerful woman in the music industry. Britney has essentially been in a lockdown for nearly 14 years, unable to interact with the world, represent herself as she would like, and unfortunately, like a lot of women in the creative arts, not afforded the authority or luxury of her own voice or control over her art. Imagine what it must be like to go from one of the most influential celebrities on the planet to a full life censorship and restriction on your thoughts, actions, money, being forced only to work when the estate dries up. And not only that, but in the hands of your father. It's a sorry state of affairs to see a beautiful young woman go through such heinous manipulation. And Britney stands in a long line of these women. From Tina Turner to Amy Winehouse to Nina Simone to Nico, of which there is another great biographical account written by Jennifer. We have to have this conversation out loud to protect the next generation, and Jennifer is creating a platform and narrative alongside these artists for us to do just that. As Jennifer rightly says, we need to drop the vagina label from the conversation and be considered artists, not male, female, or any other gender terminology, just artists. And all of us need to raise each other up in order to feel safe and supported in a world that takes the heart out of art and sees artists as much as a commodity as their work. It's a conversation I myself have to have on an unfortunately regular basis. Being misunderstood, judged, talked over in meetings, and being expected to provide an art form for less money or even for the privilege of it being seen just because of my sex. When someone is creating in the world, the sweat, blood, and tears it takes to imagine, collect the ideas, rehearse, practice, create, learn, package, market, and perform, it all takes a lot. It's often sporadic and non-linear. Its unique pattern in the timeline of everyday life means that you might need to get an idea down at 3 a.m. or perform on lunch breaks around kids or other jobs, because most artists need other things just to get paid correctly. Oh, how artists need the respect, honor, time, and money they deserve for their work, now more than ever. We as a collective need to tell our stories of misrepresentation so that our voices are heard at the table, and we equally need to be there for artists when they cannot represent themselves as they wish. The collective voice for Britney's freedom came from her fans and creators of the #FreeBritney movement. It came from people like Jennifer, as opposed to the skewed and sensational mirror of the media eye. If you can see that the artist you love needs help, You have the capacity and responsibility to make an impact in the world with solid, clear action and intention on their behalf. Now is the time and now is the hour to celebrate our voices and get creative with that. Finally, if you love an artist's work, take the time to tell them. Leave them a review, send them an email, let them know how they are making a difference in your life. This boosts confidence in the person creating, and that confidence may lead to a recognition in themselves of their own worth, something that might be lacking. A lot of artists are shy about their work and themselves and find it difficult to gauge their success in the outside world, which often means that they will charge less for their hard work. Reviews help the artists to show those in charge and others who may take advantage of their generous and sensitive natures just how valued they are in the creative space. Jennifer mentioned that one of the best parts of being a writer is receiving these kind emails from all over the world. When someone lets you know how you've made a difference, you realize weirdly in that moment that your work is really out there, existing without you, and that it's being seen and acknowledged. Jennifer spent 17 hours a day writing the Britney book just so that we could have it in our hands for Christmas. And even this podcast has taken 3 days to prepare without pay just so that I can have it exist in the world for you right now. So many of us artists won't admit to the conditions of their creative process. And so, how is the world supposed to know what it takes to create something for the public space? Reviews, emails, positive representation, sharing, it all helps to keep us artists motivated to just keep going. On the writing process, Jennifer reminds us to keep a journal of ideas and lists of people to reach out to that inspire us, and anything that may motivate you to do what you love. Just do it, she says. If you're writing, even if just for yourself, you are a writer. Owning the artistic space is a bravery in itself. I hope that today's episode has given some food for thought. As I'm sat here, with my Being Britney book in one hand and a microphone in the other, I'm reminded of how small a time we as women have been allowed historically to show our accomplishments, for them to be seen as equal. How many of our ideas over time have been stolen from, misplaced, forgotten, or wiped from history completely? I truly, truly hope, that more of us will come forward and unite in our amazing and utterly unique ways to gain in the world our overdue spotlight, without prejudice, without belittling our artistic work to crafting as opposed to creating art, without feeling scared or pressured into anything other than what we are and who we want to be in the public eye, and with the correct pay for this, our hard and valid work. I hope that we can maintain that collective voice, that status for those that walk in our footsteps, so that one day we will all just be seen as artists, as varied and valued as each other, and treated with the respect, dignity, and love that we all deserve. As Britney Spears once said, be fearless in your choices, and don't be afraid to be yourself. Being Britney, Pieces of a Modern Icon, is available from all good retailers right now. And please listen back to Jennifer's last interview on the show's Writers mini-series to find out more about her previous book, Nico, You Are Beautiful and You Are Alone. Next week on the show, we speak to studio and giant nature artist Tony Plant and what it takes to create in and of the landscape. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. If you have a spare moment now, please like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in a review on Apple Podcasts, which will really help other people like yourself to find the show. Of course, you can also share the show with your friends by following us at the Brave Moment Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or on Twitter at Moment Brave, or just follow the Linktree on all of our social media platforms. It's been so wonderful to have you all here with me again. Please get in touch with your own stories, and remember, your brave moment starts now.